People don't respect you because you do this. And deep down, you already know it. You try too hard to please. You say yes when you mean no. You shrink yourself just to be accepted. But here's the harsh truth. Respect isn't given to those who beg for approval. It's earned by those who set boundaries and stand firm. Every time you ignore your own value, you teach others to do the same. This isn't just a habit. It's a silent signal you send every day. Break it now or stay invisible forever. The choice is yours, but the consequences are real. You want to understand why people don't respect you, but you keep looking outward for answers: what they think, how they react, whether they approve. That's where the problem begins. The moment you depend on approval, you surrender power. You place your sense of worth into someone else's hands, and people can feel that immediately. It's subtle, almost invisible, but it changes how they respond to you. Think about your daily interactions. The slight hesitation before you speak, the way you soften your opinions to avoid conflict, the nervous smile when someone disagrees with you. These are not harmless habits. They are signals that say, I need you to accept me. And once that message is sent, respect begins to erode. People are drawn to certainty. They respect those who are comfortable standing alone, those who don't need constant reassurance. When you chase approval, you become predictable, easy to read, easy to control, and in a world where power is often unspoken, predictability is weakness. You may believe that being agreeable makes you likable, that by accommodating others, you earn their respect, but the opposite is true. When you constantly adjust yourself to fit others' expectations, you lose your center. You become whatever the situation demands, and in doing so, you become forgettable. People may like you in the moment, but they won't value you. And without value, there is no respect. There's a deeper issue here. The need for approval often comes from a fear of rejection. You think, if I don't please them, I might lose them. So you compromise, you hold back your true thoughts, you silence your instincts. But every time you do this, you reinforce a dangerous pattern. You teach yourself that your voice is secondary. And if you treat your own voice that way, why would anyone else treat it differently? Watch those who naturally command respect. They are not loud. They are not desperate to be liked. They don't rush to fill silence or over-explain themselves. They speak with intention, and more importantly, they are willing to stand by what they say, even if it creates tension. That willingness is what sets them apart. It tells the world, I am not here to be approved of. I am here to be understood. This shift is not about becoming cold or distant. It's about becoming grounded. When you stop seeking approval, your energy changes. You listen more carefully. You speak more deliberately. You stop performing for others and start operating from a place of internal certainty. And that certainty is magnetic. People will test you. They will push boundaries, question your stance, even challenge your confidence. That is natural. But the moment you stop bending to gain approval, something changes. You become harder to manipulate, harder to dismiss, and slowly, almost reluctantly, people begin to respect you, not because you ask for it, but because you no longer need it. Respect begins the moment you no longer chase it. Now, once you begin to loosen your grip on approval, another pattern reveals itself, one that quietly destroys your value more than almost anything else. It's your inability to say no. You tell yourself it's kindness, that you're being cooperative, helpful, easy to work with. But look closer and you'll see something else. You're afraid. Afraid that if you refuse, you'll disappoint. Afraid that if you set a limit, you'll be rejected. So you agree, again and again. You take on what you don't want, accept what you don't deserve, tolerate what you should challenge. And each time you do it, you send a message, not just to others, but to yourself. You say, my time is not that valuable. My priorities can wait. My boundaries are negotiable. People are always watching for these signals, not consciously perhaps, but instinctively, and they respond accordingly. At first, they appreciate your willingness. You become reliable, the one who never pushes back. But over time, something shifts. What was once appreciated becomes expected. What was once respected becomes exploited. Because when you make yourself endlessly available, you remove the very thing that creates value scarcity. Think about it. What do people respect more? The person who agrees to everything, or the one who chooses carefully where to invest their time and energy? The one who is always accessible, or the one whose presence must be earned? When you say yes to everything, your yes loses meaning. It becomes automatic empty, and without meaning, it carries no weight. There's also a subtle resentment that begins to build within you. You may not notice it at first, but it grows. Every unwanted obligation, every moment you sacrifice your own needs adds to it, and eventually it leaks out in your tone, your energy, your patience. People sense this inconsistency. You appear agreeable on the surface, but underneath there is tension, and tension erodes respect. Saying no, on the other hand, is an act of clarity. It tells the world that you understand your limits, that you value your time, that you are not afraid of disappointing others when it matters. It doesn't mean you become difficult or uncooperative. It means you become deliberate. You choose your commitments instead of being controlled by them. But here's where most people hesitate. They think saying no will create conflict, that it will damage relationships. In reality, it does the opposite. When done with calm certainty, a clear, composed refusal earns more respect than a reluctant agreement, because it shows strength. It shows that you are not easily swayed, not easily pressured. And yes, some people will resist this change. They've grown comfortable with your compliance. They benefited from your inability to refuse. When you begin to set boundaries, they may question you, even push back. That is not a sign you are doing something wrong. It is proof that the dynamic is shifting. You are no longer operating from fear. You are no longer trying to secure your place through constant agreement. You are defining your place through choice. The truth is simple, but difficult to accept every time you say yes when you mean no. You trade a piece of your self-respect for temporary approval. And over time, that trade leaves you with neither. Your power begins the moment your no becomes real. As you begin to reclaim your time and stop giving your energy away so easily, another habit becomes impossible to ignore: your tendency to reveal too much. You speak freely, thinking honesty will build connection. You explain your motives, your struggles, your plans, believing transparency earns trust. But in reality, you may be stripping away something far more valuable: your sense of mystery. Understand this. People are not drawn only to what is known. They are drawn to what is partially hidden, to what invites curiosity. When you reveal everything too quickly, you leave nothing for others to discover. There is no tension, no intrigue, no reason to lean in. You become easy to understand, easy to categorize, and just as easily dismissed. Watch how often you feel silence. Someone asks a simple question, and you respond with layers of explanation. You justify your decisions. You clarify your intentions. You try to make sure nothing is misunderstood. It feels responsible, even polite. But beneath it lies a subtle insecurity, the need to be fully accepted, fully explained, fully safe from judgment. And again, people sense this. The more you talk, the more you expose, not just information, but patterns. Your fears, your doubts, your emotional triggers, and once these are visible, they can be used. Not always in an obvious or malicious way, but in small, quiet shifts. People adjust how they deal with you. They know where you bend, where you hesitate, where you can be influenced. There is a kind of power in restraint, in saying less than necessary, in allowing others to wonder, to interpret, even to misread you slightly. This does not mean becoming deceptive or distant. It means becoming selective. You share what serves the moment, not everything that comes to mind. Consider the effect of silence. When you speak less, your words carry more weight. When you don't rush to explain yourself, people pay closer attention. They begin to project their own assumptions, often elevating your presence rather than diminishing it. What is undefined can feel larger than what is fully revealed. There is also discipline in this. The urge to overshare is often emotional. You want to release tension, to be understood immediately. But power rarely operates in immediacy. It operates in timing, in choosing when to reveal and when to hold back. This creates control, not over others, but over your own narrative. You must learn to separate expression from exposure. Not everything you feel needs to be spoken. Not every thought deserves an audience. The more you filter, the more intentional you become. And intention is something people respect, even if they cannot fully articulate why. Some may interpret your restraint as distance at first. They may wonder why you are not as open as before, but over time, that very restraint begins to shape how they see you. You are no longer predictable, no longer easy to read. There is depth, or at least the perception of it. And perception, in many ways, defines reality. This is not about hiding who you are. It is about revealing yourself in layers, with control, with awareness. When you give everything away at once, you leave yourself with nothing to leverage, nothing to protect, nothing to build upon. The less you reveal, the more others seek to understand, and that pursuit is where your influence begins. As you begin to speak less and reveal yourself with more intention, something else becomes impossible to ignore. The way you respond when you are disrespected, or more accurately, the way you often don't respond at all. You let it pass. You tell yourself it's not worth the trouble, that you're being mature, that you're choosing peace over conflict. But what you're really doing is allowing a line to be crossed without consequence. Disrespect rarely arrives as something loud and obvious. It comes in small moments, a dismissive tone, a joke at your expense, someone interrupting you, ignoring your time, overlooking your contributions. Individually, these seem insignificant, but together they form a pattern, and if you do nothing, that pattern becomes your reality. People are constantly testing boundaries, whether they realize it or not. They observe how far they can go, what they can say, how much they can take. And every time you remain silent in the face of disrespect, you give them their answer. You show them that there is no cost, no resistance, no line they cannot cross. You might believe that confronting it will make you appear difficult or overly sensitive. You worry about how you'll be perceived, so you suppress the reaction, you smile, you brush it off, you move on. But internally something shifts. You feel it, a slight tightening, a quiet frustration. Because on some level, you've allowed something that shouldn't have been allowed. This is where self-respect begins to erode. Not from what others do to you, but from what you tolerate. Every unaddressed moment chips away at your sense of control. And over time, you start to carry that weight into every interaction. You become more cautious, more guarded, but not stronger, just more affected. Addressing disrespect does not mean reacting emotionally or creating unnecessary conflict. In fact, the most powerful responses are often the calmest. A simple pause, a direct look, a measured statement that makes it clear you noticed and that it won't be ignored. There is no need for anger, no need for drama, just clarity. When you respond this way, something changes immediately. The dynamic shifts. People become more aware of how they engage with you. They begin to recognize that there are limits, that your presence is not something to take lightly, and even if they don't agree with you, they adjust, because you've introduced consequence. Some individuals may resist this. They may push back, test you further, even attempt to frame you as the problem. This is where most people retreat. They second-guess themselves, wondering if they overreacted. But this resistance is not a signal to step back. It's a signal that the boundary is working. You are disrupting a pattern they were comfortable with. Over time, these small moments of assertion build something much larger. You begin to carry yourself differently. There is less hesitation, less internal conflict. You no longer rely on others to define how you are treated. You define it yourself through consistent action, and others notice. Not because you demand respect, but because you no longer accept its absence. There is a quiet authority in that, a presence that doesn't need to be announced, only demonstrated. The truth is simple. What you tolerate becomes your standard, and your standard determines your respect. By now, you begin to see a pattern forming. You stop chasing approval. You guard your time, you speak with intention, and you set boundaries when they are crossed. But there is still something deeper at the core of all this, something that quietly determines whether any of it holds. It is your sense of identity, or more precisely, how firmly you stand in it. Most people drift. They adjust themselves depending on who they are with, what the situation demands, what will be most acceptable in the moment. They become agreeable in one setting, assertive in another, silent in one group, expressive in the next. On the surface, this looks like adaptability, but underneath, it often reveals something else, a lack of a stable center. When you don't have a clear sense of who you are, you become highly responsive to external pressure. You read the room too closely. You pick up on expectations and subtly reshape yourself to meet them. Again, it feels harmless, even useful, but over time it creates inconsistency, and inconsistency makes you difficult to trust, difficult to define, and ultimately difficult to respect. People are not drawn to perfection. They are drawn to clarity. They respect individuals who know where they stand, who express themselves with a certain steadiness. Even if they disagree, they understand the person in front of them. There's no confusion, no constant shifting. That stability creates a kind of psychological anchor. Others know what to expect, and that predictability, when rooted in strength, builds respect. Contrast that with someone who changes constantly, one moment confident, the next uncertain, one moment decisive, the next easily swayed. It creates friction in how others perceive you. They begin to question your reliability, not just in action, but in character. And once that doubt sets in, respect weakens. This does not mean becoming rigid or closed off. Identity is not about refusing to grow or adapt. It is about having a core, a set of values, principles, and ways of thinking that remain consistent, even as circumstances change. You can evolve, but you do not dissolve. There is also a subtle confidence that emerges when you are grounded in yourself. You no longer feel the need to constantly adjust or prove. You don't rush to fit in because you are not afraid of standing out. And that alone changes how people respond to you. You are no longer seeking a place. You are defining one. But this requires honesty. You must confront the parts of yourself that are unclear, the areas where you rely too heavily on external validation. You must decide what you stand for, what you will accept, what you will reject, and then, more importantly, you must live in alignment with those decisions. There will be moments where this costs you. Not everyone will agree with you. Not everyone will stay. But what you lose in approval, you gain in something far more valuable, self-respect. And that self-respect becomes the foundation for how others treat you, because in the end, people don't respect those who constantly adjust to be accepted. They respect those who remain consistent, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it sets them apart. If you are not anchored in who you are, the world will shape you into something forgettable. And once you begin to stand firmly in who you are, there is one final shift that transforms everything, the way you use silence and the way you carry your presence. Most people underestimate this. They believe respect is earned through constant expression, through explaining, persuading, proving. So they talk. They fill every gap, respond to every comment, defend every position. They believe that more words create more authority. But often, the opposite is true. When you speak too much, you dilute your impact. Your words lose precision, lose weight. You reveal not just your thoughts, but your need to be heard, your urgency to be validated. And that urgency weakens your position. It signals that you are trying to convince, rather than simply stating what is. Silence, on the other hand, creates space. And within that space, something powerful happens. People begin to pay attention. They lean in, not because you demand it, but because you don't. There is a quiet confidence in someone who does not feel the need to constantly assert themselves. It suggests control, not just over the situation, but over themselves. Think of the moments when someone says very little, yet commands the entire room. They don't rush. They don't react immediately. They allow a pause before they speak. That pause is not empty. It is deliberate. It shows that they are considering, observing, choosing their words carefully. And when they finally speak, those words carry weight because they were not given freely. You must begin to see silence not as absence, but as a tool, a way to maintain control, to avoid unnecessary exposure, to create tension that draws others toward you. When someone challenges you, you don't need to respond instantly. A brief pause can shift the dynamic. It shows that you are not reactive, not easily pulled into their frame. Your presence works in the same way. It is not just what you say. but how you exist in a space, the way you hold yourself, the steadiness of your gaze, the calmness in your movements. These are signals just as powerful as words, often more so. People read them instinctively. They sense whether you are grounded or uncertain, composed or restless. When your presence is controlled, your silence intentional, you begin to project something rare, a sense of inner authority. You are not trying to dominate the room yet. The room adjusts to you. Conversations slow down. People become more measured in how they speak to you, not because you demanded it, but because your energy set the tone. This is where everything comes together. You are no longer seeking approval. You are no longer saying yes out of fear. You are no longer revealing everything or tolerating what diminishes you. You are grounded in who you are. And now you express all of that not through force, but through restraint. There is discipline in this. The urge to speak, to react, to fill silence will still be there. But each time you resist it, each time you choose composure over impulse, you strengthen your position. You become less predictable, less accessible in the ways that weaken you, and more impactful in the moments that matter. Composed or restless. When your presence is controlled, your silence intentional, you begin to project something rare, a sense of inner authority. You are not trying to dominate the room yet. The room adjusts to you. Conversations slow down. People become more measured in how they speak to you, not because you demanded it, but because your energy set the tone. This is where everything comes together. You are no longer seeking approval. You are no longer saying yes out of fear. You are no longer revealing everything or tolerating what diminishes you. You are grounded in who you are. And now you express all of that not through force, but through restraint. There is discipline in this. The urge to speak, to react, to fill silence will still be there. But each time you resist it, each time you choose composure over impulse, you strengthen your position. You become less predictable, less accessible in the ways that weaken you, and more impactful in the moments that matter. Not tomorrow, not someday, right now. The way people treat you isn't random. It's a reflection of what you allow, what you project, what you tolerate. Change that, and everything changes. Start valuing your time, your words, your presence. Set boundaries. Speak less, but mean more. Stand firm in who you are, because the world doesn't decide your worth, you do. And once you truly understand that, respect stops being something you chase and becomes something you naturally command.